Good afternoon, Excellencies, distinguished speakers, colleagues, and friends. Welcome to this official solution session of the World Social Summit on Emerging Pathways Beyond GDP. This is the presentation of the high-level expert group emerging recommendations and also an intergenerational dialogue with youth moving beyond GDP. This event is co-organized between the high-level expert group on Beyond GDP and the Beyond Lab. My name is Ricardo Fuentes, and I'm part of the Secretariat supporting the work from the high-level expert group. This is a secretariat comprised by UNCTAD, UNDP, the Executive Office of the Secretary General, and DESA. I'm joined today by Özge, who will supporting also in the moderation of this session. Özge.
Again, I did it this morning, so I'm not a big person in tech, but yeah. No, thank you so much, Ricardo. My name is Özge, actually, but yeah, I've been struggling with this name my entire life, but it's what it is. I'm the director of the Beyond Lab. It's an innovation space, a multi-stakeholder innovation space located at the UN in Geneva, at the Office of the Director General. It's really such a pleasure and honor to be here with all of you talking about a topic that we deeply care about. So. And actually having a dialogue on integration, also equity, integrating into youth moving beyond GDP. Maybe just one reminder from our side. This is actually an effort that we are working on in the lab, but together with our partners, UN Trade and Development. So Anu is here today, and Rethinking Economics International. It's a student network / movement. They couldn't be here today, so we're also thinking about them in spirit. And back to you, Ricardo.
Thank you. Today, the session today marks a very important milestone for the work of the high-level expert group on Beyond GDP. This is the first public presentation of the interim report that you can find online now. The high-level expert group was appointed by the Secretary General, and in their mandate, they have, as one of the outcomes, the development of a global framework that complements the gross domestic product as a measurement. And in the mandate also, they have the task to find recommendations on domains and indicators. We will see some of those initial recommendations today as part of the presentation. But as part of the context setting, we want to also stress, why does this matter? Why does this matter now? GDP measures economic activity, but not necessarily well-being, not sustainability, not equity or inclusion. And the work of the high-level expert group is far more than a technical exercise. It is about redefining what progress means for people and the planet. The goal of the H-leg is to create metrics that go beyond GDP, that close critical information gaps, and that enable smarter policies, and also informs better and smarter investments and economic transformations, but not only economic, social and planetary transformations that make the planet and the societies where we live better for everyone. This process is part of the Pact for the Future, and also we know that the SDG target 17.19 call for a new framework that captures what truly matters for people and the planet. So this is the continuation of a long process, and we want to recognize that this is not something that's coming out of the blue. This is something that has a long history of reflection, and what we want is to build on that.
Thank you. Yeah, indeed, Ricardo. I just want to echo that. I mean, embedded obviously in the SDGs, and then more recently in the Pact for the Future, as actually the Pact indicates, our decision to move beyond NDP will have obviously implications not only for today, but for generations to come. So what we're talking today is really legacy that we're shaping. And I think I want to, invite all of you to think about what is this legacy that we're going to co-create, I think, together, right? This is why this event will be, in fact, organized in the form, shape of an intergeneration dialogue, which is maybe a bit unusual, but much needed in spaces like summits and other places, because it's really about making sure that young people's perspectives are included, and that's why we are very proud that the Youth Moving Beyond GDP network, which has been coming out of the initiative that I just mentioned before will be part of this conversation moving forward. So what we will hear actually today, Ricardo, is really from experts, yeah, young and old, so not youth, but experts that are young and old, and in the middle, like myself, and member states and others, how to turn ideas into action.
So right now, we are honored to invite the architect of the 2030 Agenda, chair of the Sustainable Development Group and long-term advocate for youth and beyond GDP, Her Excellency Amina Mohamed, UN Deputy Secretary General, to give her opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Excellencies. Young people in the room? Come on, more energy, okay. Because these older people will need to engage with you, and I just wanted to make sure we had young people in the room, but thank you very much, Ricardo. Look, 30 years ago, governments from around the world came together in Copenhagen, and we've heard that all this morning, to promote social development as a foundation for our human dignity and for flourishing, thriving. Their declaration stated that our societies must respond more effectively to the material and spiritual needs of individuals, their families, and communities in which they live throughout our diverse countries and regions. This was not a polite request for delivering better services or making policy choices slightly more progressive. Rather, it was a demand for a fundamental reassessment of people's needs and a reorientation of societies so that meeting those needs is positioned as the central goal. Over the last 30 years, progress has been made. The glass is somewhat full. What has remained unchanged, however, is our over-reliance on gross domestic product to assess our performance and inform decision-making. GDP has been and continues to be a useful and versatile measure of economic output, but it is woefully ill-suited to capture the needs and aspirations of our world today. The urgency to look beyond GDP has only intensified since Copenhagen. The world has been rocked by multiple crises: the Great Recession that undermined trust in our economic systems, the COVID-19 pandemic that has had lasting impact on our physical and psychological health, the triple planetary crisis, and the rapid and accelerating technological change that is upending labor markets in the short and long term, but it's also transforming our everyday lives at a really frightening pace. These factors have led to a growing gap between people's experiences, lived experiences, and the limited picture that GDP is able to provide about society's progress. And they have fed an erosion of trusts in government across the globe. And so today, friends, last year, at the Summit of the Future, member states agreed that the time has come for change. They asked the Secretary General, as Ricardo has just said, to appoint a high-level expert group, and so grateful for both our colleagues here today for leading that work, to find a credible and a practical framework that can complement GDP with measures of well-being, inclusiveness, equity, and sustainability. And it's not the first time we have spoken about this. This has been a conversation long in the tooth. In today's event, we will hear about the progress of the expert group as they present their interim report, and it is about the emerging pathways, and really important that a lot of work, consultation has gone into that. The role of the UN in this effort has been significant, so shout out to my colleagues who are here in the front and the second row and probably elsewhere. Our resident coordinators at the country level help to coordinate and to direct our footprint, our responses and support to countries around the world. So welcome to them. It's not an easy job today. The UN, I've always said this is our global village, is uniquely placed to convene the global community to agree what matters and what we measure. We did this with the Sustainable Development Goals, which introduced the principle of leaving no one behind and the forging of concerns for people and planet. And in that experience, and it was a huge team effort around the world, many, when the targets came up, when the indicators came up, and when the goals came up, thought they were too many and too ambitious. But it depends who's saying that. Is it the recipient or the person that is going to help that recipient have the rights and the aspirations and the vision that they would like to attain? So it was important in the Sustainable Development Goals that, as I said to Nora just earlier, They were 3,000 to begin with, and we ended up with just over 200. And it was really a measure of people wanting to be seen, people wanting to be felt, and to be measured in their real experiences. The 17 goals, odd number. I have to tell you, we wanted 8 or 10. But frankly, when everyone looks at the SDGs today, they see themselves in them. And maybe by 2030, we will have many less goals, but then we would have been used to the paradigm shift that tried to cover these 3 dimensions of sustainable development, from inclusive economies to our social agenda, for which we're in Doha for, and not to forget the environment. And I would say the 2 things that hold us true, the governance and partnerships, are really the foundations of it. More recently, the UN has nurtured the Multidimensional Vulnerability Index, and that was tough, revealing the multiple structural challenges that impede sustainable development and making a powerful case for a new approach to assess countries' financial needs. Now our efforts turn towards beyond GDP, and you all have a critical role to play. The Social Summit is a unique opportunity to inform the work of our expert group as we seek to identify measures that capture what we intrinsically value, including the social dimensions of sustainable development. Going beyond GDP, powerful vehicle to advance social development by reconceptualizing how societies and governments approach their quest for progress. And so, friends, the task for the expert group is not an easy one. Allow me to share 3 lessons from my involvement in the process that led to the Sustainable Development Goals. First, consultations and engagements with a variety of stakeholders are key for the legitimacy and the quality of that process. And I'm encouraged by the efforts of the experts who are speaking to a variety of stakeholders. And let me say it started from the first day on the job in the UN, and I came from outside of the UN, from government, from civil society. And the people around the table, my UN colleagues, said to me, so how are you going to do this, and how are you going to do that, and what's going to be the number of goals that you have? And I was looking at them thinking, do they know what a 4-year process of engagement and consultation is? Many people who are used to putting in a prescription and handing it to the world for consultation. The SDGs was a process of consultation, of engagement with everybody and every constituency that we could have, and we hope that we will do well with this one. Second, change does not happen overnight. The process requires patience, tenacity, especially if the recommendations are to resonate in all countries. And finally, ambition is crucial. One of the key elements that led to the universal adoption of the SDGs was the recognition that citizens across the world could no longer wait for their hopes and aspirations to remain unmet and undervalued. We're now in a similar situation. Citizens should no longer be told, people, in fact, not everyone's a citizen in a country, should be told that the metric for the success of their society can be expressed in a single number. We need a visionary proposal for how to conceptualize a dignified and good life today and tomorrow. And today's event is a key milestone. But our journey does not end here. We rely on your help going forward, participating in our ongoing consultations with our experts, engaging the group's final report during the 80th session of the UN General Assembly, and supporting the intergovernmental processes that will deliberate on the group's recommendations. Finally, operationalizing the Beyond GDP framework in countries around the world. We will count on your support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, NDSG, for inspiring words. It's always incredibly powerful to listen to you as a champion for change and hope, because today is a day of hope, so it's amazing that we're coming together on that. On that note, I would like to thank you for your remarks, and I would like to invite Costa Rica to the podium for delivering your perspective from a government perspective on, just give me 1 second. Sorry, can I just ask my colleague Natalie to come to the stage? Would you mind? Yeah. Because I understand that there will be a translation. I just wanted to make sure we are actually talking in a language. Yes. Okay, thank you so much.
Good afternoon. Sorry, because I don't speak English. Mi amigo Marcelo, que es el cónsul de Costa Rica, aquí va a hacer la traducción entonces. Voy a intentar hablar muy despacio lo cual es poco posible, pero lo voy a intentar. Queremos contarle lo que ha sido para Costa Rica la experiencia de tener un índice de pobreza multidimensional. En el 2015, nuestro país tomó la decisión de arrancar la medición. El índice le permite a nuestro país saber cuáles otras necesidades tiene la población que no están vinculados con sus ingresos económicos. Esta medición es muy importante, particularmente cuando queremos saber cuáles son las necesidades que tienen personas que están en condición de pobreza extrema, pobreza básica o vulnerabilidad. Le toca.
Good afternoon. I have to use this because my English is quite good, but my memory not. The minister thanks for this opportunity, and she wants to tell you about Costa Rica's experience with having a multidimensional poverty index. In 2015, our country decided to begin measuring it. The index allowed our country to know what other needs the population has that aren't linked to their income. This measurement is very important, particularly when we want to know what the needs are of the people living in extreme poverty due to a lack of basic necessities.
Cuando decidimos empezar a medir el índice, uno de los asuntos que definimos es quién iba a hacer la medición. Y decidimos que lo iba a hacer el Instituto Nacional de Estadísticas y Censos de nuestro país, porque son los expertos en temas de medición de este tipo. Y entonces hacemos la medición por año. Cada año iniciamos en julio y terminamos en septiembre, y en octubre tenemos los datos. Tenemos 5 dimensiones. La dimensión de educación, que tiene 4 variables, la de vivienda y el uso del Internet, que también tiene 4 variables. Tenemos la de salud, la dimensión de trabajo y la dimensión de protección social. Cada una tiene un mismo peso, 20, 20, 20, 20. Y cada una tiene 4 áreas para evaluar. Sí.
So one of the issues is who is going to make these measurements. So at the end, we decided that the National Institute of Statistics and Census of our country will do it, because only the experts in measurement of this type of measurements can do it. So we do the measurement every year, starting July and finishing in September. And in October, we have the data. We have 5 dimensions, which has 4 variables. The housing and internet use dimension, which also has 4 variables: the health dimension, the work dimension, and the social protection dimension. Each one has the same weight, 20, 20, 20. Each one 20.
En estos 10 años que tenemos de medir el índice, entonces nos dimos cuenta que teníamos serios problemas con vivienda, por ejemplo, ¿verdad? Nos dimos cuenta que teníamos serios problemas con salud, acceso a la salud en la población. Y teníamos un problema de conectividad, de acceso a Internet en los hogares. De las 5 variables, esas eran las variables que tenían mayor peso. A lo largo de los años, entonces, hemos venido trabajando para resolver esas necesidades. Y pasamos de un índice de pobreza multidimensional en el 2015 que el total país era de una necesidad de 21.8%. Y este año, en el 2025, bajamos ese índice a 9.9%. Esto lo hemos logrado entonces con los datos, pero haciendo un trabajo muy focalizado, llevando entonces esas necesidades múltiples que tienen los hogares, que no están vinculados con sus ingresos propiamente, y le hemos desde el Estado favorecido en la asignación de los diferentes programas que tenemos desde el gobierno. Seguimos teniendo personas en pobreza, pero esas personas en pobreza hoy tienen un mayor bienestar porque tienen condiciones que hace 10 años atrás no tenían. No. Sí, conectividad, educación y vivienda.
Okay. So in the last 10 years, we had problems with connectivity and housing and health. Yes. A multidimensional poverty index in 2015 showed a need of 21.8% of the total population nationwide. And this year, in 2025, we have lowered that index from 21.8 to 9.9%. These are the multiple needs of households that are not directly linked to their income. And we see, from the perspective of the state, through the allocation of the different programs we have from the government, that we still have people living in poverty in our country.
Lo interesante de este ejercicio que hemos hecho como país, me parece que son 3 elementos. Uno, que nos ha permitido entonces conocer dónde están las necesidades reales de las personas, más allá de sus ingresos, como lo decía. Lo otro, entonces, nos ha permitido hacer mejor la puntería de dónde tenemos que colocar los recursos, y esto tiene que ver muchísimo con la eficiencia, entonces, en el uso de los recursos públicos. Y la tercera cosa que a mí me parece que es muy, muy importante, es que entonces nos ha permitido evidenciar a través de los datos la velocidad con la que un Estado, un país puede resolver las necesidades cuando conoce y mide esas necesidades. Probablemente antes del 2015 sabíamos que teníamos personas que requerían de esos servicios, pero no lográbamos precisar porque no teníamos la escala para poder hacerlo. Hoy tenemos una escala que entonces nos permite año a año el reto de disminuir y disminuir esos porcentajes.
Okay, so she's talking about 3 basic points. One is the one that has allowed Costa Rica to know the needs, the real needs of person that goes beyond the income. The other one has is how to allocate these resources with the most efficiency. Through the data, I'm sorry.
Sí, nos ha permitido entonces lo rápido que hemos podido hacer las intervenciones.
Okay. So with the data collection and the efficiency that they can measure this data, they have been able to create solutions for people. And probably before 2014, we didn't know how these problems were handled, but now we have the data to do it.
Muy bien. 10 años después, entonces, de hacer estas mediciones y luego de llegar a 9.9% el índice nuestro, desde el 2024 estamos discutiendo la pertinencia de las dimensiones que hoy tenemos y estamos discutiendo también las diferentes variables que tiene cada una de estas dimensiones. Por ejemplo, estamos en una mesa de trabajo analizando si deberíamos de medir más la conectividad. Costa Rica es un país que tiene mucha conectividad ahora. Entonces ya no tiene mucho sentido medir algo que ya está prácticamente atendido. Pero también nos dimos cuenta que tenemos otras variables que ahora podrían ser muy importantes o muy interesantes para analizarlas. Por ejemplo, la primera infancia. ¿Cuál es la cobertura que tenemos de red de cuidado para niñas y para niños de nuestro país? Entendiendo que las redes de cuidado son muy relevantes. Y en un hogar en condición de pobreza, el cuidado de un niño es mucho más relevante que un niño que no está en condición de pobreza.
Okay, 10 years after, we have dimensions that we have today, and we are also discussing the different variables that each of these dimensions has. For example, we are working in a group analyzing whatever we should measure connectivity more. Costa Rica is a country that has a lot of connectivity. Now it makes a lot of sense to measure. Now it makes a lot of sense to measure something that is already practically addressed. But we also realize that we have other variables that could now be very important and interesting to analyze. For example, early childhood. What is the coverage we have of the network for children in our country? Understanding that they are relevant, especially in places where there is poverty and there is a need for care.
Otra variable, y nada más para terminar, otra variable que nos parece muy importante, ya voy a terminar. Otra variable que nos parece muy importante es no el acceso a la salud, sino el tiempo de espera para la atención en un servicio de salud, que es muy diferente en condiciones de pobreza. Entonces, finalizo contándoles que lo hemos hecho bien, que nos parece que ya no es suficiente, que hay que actualizarlo y que tenemos una mesa grande de trabajo donde estamos analizando las posibles variables que estaríamos incorporando y las posibles variables que estaríamos también sacando del índice. Muchas gracias. Buenas tardes.
Muchas gracias, señora ministra. Her Excellency Yorleni Leon Marchena, Costa Rica's Minister of Human Development and Social Inclusion. And now, without further ado, we'll go to the presentation of the interim report of the high-level expert group, which will be presented by Professor Nora Lustig and Professor Kaushik Basu. Nora, Kaushik, the floor is yours.
Okay. First of all, I always ask people, can you hear me? Great. It's important. So thanks very much for joining us this afternoon to the launch of the interim report of the work that the high-level expert group is doing on Beyond GDP. And I want to start by thanking the Secretary General and the Deputy Secretary General for having invited us to do this work, which, at the beginning when I was invited, I said, but we have the SDGs, we have the HDI, so what is it that, what was going to be our value added? But the journey that we have started, I think, is very important and enlightening, and I hope that it will also be transformational in more than one sense. I'm actually going to use, in my presentation, the remarks that were given by the minister from Costa Rica are going to help me to illustrate the dilemmas that we're facing in choosing indicators. So who are we? Well, everybody knows that we come from the Pact on the Future, that there is a trajectory, which is very important because this is the first time that an initiative like this one comes from the governments, a request from governments that was put forward to the Secretary General, which gives it a different type of legitimacy and perspective that previous engagements and initiatives that we're taking at the international level did not have that backing. So this is us. It's 14 members of different countries. I come originally from Argentina, but I also have a Mexican citizenship and others. And Kaushik Basu, who is originally from India, but also has other citizenships. And as you can see, it's a very diverse group. I always mention that the commission by, very important commission, Stiglitz-Senfi-Tusi, had only one woman of the entire group. So now, we've made progress. I hope it translates also in an output that will be influential. So what are going to mention here? I mean, Ricardo already said some things about Amina as well about our mandate. This is a very brief outline of what I'm going to do very quickly. So we have to come up with a limited set, underscore limited set, of universally applicable, country-owned indicators reflecting the multidimensional nature of sustainable development. We're 14 experts, and we're going to build on existing frameworks. And I think it's very important to say at the outset that we're not trying to replace either GDP or the SDGs. People will be able to continue collecting anything that they think is important for their context. But we want to identify a set of indicators that are not GDP, but have the same prestige and importance as GDP. So it has to be limited, and they're universally collected, and they're universally used. That's our quest. So the need for our work, I'll let you read Amartya Sen. I'm not going to repeat what he said, but it just tells why is it so important what we're doing. And what are our goals? We want to reflect current well-being more accurately than GDP per capita does. We want to go beyond income, including other dimensions. We want to go beyond averages. Per capita is an average. And we want to go beyond today. We also want to think about the interconnectedness, because although our proposal will be for countries to collect this data, there are a number of issues that are cross-national, and we have to bring that to the fore. We have a three-part framework, which I think this is something on which there's a lot of consensus about what is it that you need to look into if you want to go beyond GDP. So well-being, equity and inclusion, and sustainability. That's the three-parted, and so far, so good. We also have selected a set of core domains. We have 7 now. Our consultation is going to ask everybody, I mean, you can participate online, you can talk to us, you can write to us, whichever way you like. You can use pigeons if you like to reach us as well. We have decided on these 7 because we think they're pretty comprehensive. Material well-being, education, health, subjective well-being, social capital or social cohesion, some people call it, governance, and environmental quality. And within that, we're going to have to select indicators that capture the average, indicators that capture inequities, both in terms of vertical and horizontal, gender, ethnic, etc., and indicators that capture sustainability. And that's going to be the challenge, to find the limited indicators. So one possibility would be to use composite indicators. What the Minister of Costa Rica was referring to, MPI, is one of the composite indicators that's out there. And it aggregates, but you can also look at the gaps that exist in the different dimensions as a dashboard. You don't need to aggregate. So we're going to have to decide the extent to which we want to stick to a dashboard or try to find composites. If we look for composites, my emphasis is we have to be careful that what our goal is in terms of what we want to improve the most is reflected in that aggregation, so that when the government acts or other actors act, the change reflects that. And it's not always the case in the composite indicators that this happens. And we want to be very transparent about that. So in addition, and this is, I think that Professor Basu will speak much more to that, is we want to also complement GDP, not just with non-GDP related indicators, but also propose maybe some adjustments to GDP itself that may be able to tell us a story which is more comprehensive. That tells us a story about the extent that GDP on average doesn't capture inequality or poverty, and it doesn't capture what really should be valued, and it doesn't capture sustainability. So lastly, let me just say what our tasks are. For now, we need to finalize the domains. So this is part of the consultation that we are engaging with you and with everybody online with the launch today. The selection of indicators, and here we're going to need help as well. We're going to need help to sort of accept that not your favorite indicator maybe will be there, It doesn't mean that it's not going to be collected. It doesn't mean that it's not important, but everybody has to make an effort of giving up also in this process. Otherwise, we're not going to come to something that's core and that's treated with the same, if you want, importance as GDP per capita. There are measurement challenges that have to do with the collection of the data, but also the aggregation of the data, et cetera, to have homogeneous across countries so comparability makes sense. And then, very importantly, is influence and uptake. And that's where we need to talk both to the converted and the skeptics. I don't know if there are any skeptics here today. I doubt it, because this is a social summit. But, you know, in other places, we know we can get many skeptics about going beyond GDP, and our task will be to persuade them that it's not something that's going to be harmful to the agenda of growth. On the contrary, it's going to be absolutely complementary. So thank you very much, and hope to hear back from you.
Your Excellencies, distinguished members of the audience, it gives me great pleasure to be here because of the kinds of issues that we are discussing. As already mentioned by Nora just now, Her Excellency, the DSG, the Minister from Costa Rica, the target, what we are pursuing, can make a big difference to the kind of world we create. Actually, listening to them, I was remembering a very trivial, for me, a realization as to how the target is important. Just after I first moved from India to USA in 1994, a local newspaper published an article saying that if you jog for 10 minutes, your life expectancy, 10 minutes, your life expectancy will go up by 8 minutes. Which sounded terrific. And I started jogging. One day while jogging, I was asking myself, what is it that I'm trying to maximize in life? The total amount of time on earth or total amount of non-jogging time on earth? If it is the latter, then every time I do 10 minutes, I'm clipping off 2 minutes of my non-jogging time on earth. So I stopped immediately. Since then, my target has changed. I'm actually back into jogging. But this is a trivial example. But actually, I've spent 7 years in the policy world, 3 years in India, 4 years in Washington with the World Bank. And it's very, very evident that the GDP game that the countries play, locked into, covers up so many vital things. And political leaders will talk about this one giant figure, which you then compete about, and ignore so many other valuable dimensions of life. That's what we are aiming for. Nora just gave you a very systematic description of what we are covering. Let me just illustrate 1 or 2 points within that. You know, if you're looking at GDP growth with no attention to where it's going, whether poverty is increasing, whether people who live in deprivation is increasing, it's entirely possible that GDP is growing because it's going into a few hands, but poverty is increasing, inequality is increasing. Is that really a good thing? Do we really want to aspire to a world of that kind? Most of us will feel that that is not the case. You do want some sensitivity to how it's being, the GDP is growing. And so if we can begin to make some corrections, these are the additional paths. That is, yes, you have your GDP, but you also have a new measure which takes into account the correction of the GDP in terms of how it is being distributed. It's immediately going to change the incentives of politicians because political leaders want to show that their country is doing well in terms of the indicator that is central. That will begin to change the game that they are playing and hopefully be a little bit of incentive towards a better world. Inequality, one particular dimension I want to point to, which was earlier not important but is becoming more important now. In the olden days, inequality would mean that some people, the super rich, would have huge consumptions of whatever, mansions, cars, yachts, planes. Nowadays, it's that, plus the control of a media platform, plus the control of a television channel, plus the control of a newspaper, and you can make ordinary people lose their voice. So pure economic inequality translates into an impact on democracy, the functioning of society, which probably we are beginning to see the fallout of that. If this game can be changed by changing the targets, publicizing the targets, that will be important. Similarly, about sustainability and well-being, I will not go into these, but we are trying, and I do feel very good because the work is reaching a state. You will see the interim report. It's already available. You can access it, and we would love to get your feedback. It is inching towards something concrete that we can provide the world with and try to change a little bit of the game, which is probably contributing to the very dismal state of the world that we live in, the game that we started. You know, the founding father of some of this work, Simon Kuznets, had warned while he was showing how to compute GDP, the national income, that this is not the sole measure of welfare. But that's what it has become. So we need to make corrections for this. We are looking at various dimensions. We are really looking forward to get your response. There is a platform now on the web where you can give your suggestions. And I'm hoping that in the last lap, we will make a tiny contribution, and the world really needs it, towards a better game that we play collectively. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the co-chairs for his inspiring input and really food for thought, and actually invitation to co-create. I just wanted to say it again. This is really a session where we want to be inclusive as possible, and the whole process is designed as such. So it's not just about us, and particularly you, in terms of co-chairs, but all of us, right? So how can we change things together? This is also a moment where I would like to make another plea, yeah? Because we have been talking also this morning at a different but connected OECD event that while we are talking about rethinking the economic systems of the future, we can't do this without those people that are going to inherit this, right? It's about young people, but it's all about next generations, future generations actually, that don't have a voice in this yet, sadly. So how can we make sure that we do this in mind and looking into intergenerational impact? And that's why it's such a pleasure to invite onto the stage, and you are already here, that's great, a member of the youth network that I just mentioned that we're working on in the United Nations together with UNCTAD Rethinking Economics, that is really more figuring as a sounding board to what you're doing, distinguished co-chairs, and really making sure that, again, the voice of young people are not just an afterthought, but actually key to what you're doing. So with no any further ado, I would like to now invite Palak Kanma to share your thoughts and insights. Thank you so much already.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates and partners. My name is Palak Khanna. I'm a 22-year-old youth change maker from New Delhi, India. I'm one of Asia's 100 Women Power Leaders for 2023. I run my own nonprofit that works on literally and essentially breaking the ice about conversations that matter but often get ignored. Currently serving as the regional representative for Asia with the Commonwealth Student Association. Today, I have the honor of representing the Youth Moving Beyond GDP Network in this solution session. And I stand before you to share the recommendations that emerged from meaningful dialogues with young people across regions, which has now formed 3 guiding principles and 5 domains. These recommendations demonstrate what the Beyond GDP indicator should reflect to resonate with the young people and what they believe should shape the Beyond GDP agenda, a call to reimagine what progress truly means. Our vision is anchored in 3 guiding principles that resonate deeply with youth and apply across all domains. They need to be, number 1, human rights based. Every metric must uphold dignity, equity, and justice for everyone. Number 2, intergenerational justice. Decisions today must honor the well-being of future generations, fostering solidarity across time. And number 3, country-owned yet globally relevant. Solutions must reflect the local realities while contributing to shared global goals, underpinned by common but differentiated commitments. Building on these principles, the youth propose 5 domains that define what progress should look like, and I'd love to also share all those 5 with all of you. The first one being participatory and fair governance, which calls for transparent, accountable and inclusive governance, ensuring that there is meaningful youth participation and intergenerational decision making, which is essential It also should measure fiscal justice and financial alignment to beyond GDP, ensuring public finance prioritizes future positive investments, progressive taxation, and intergenerational budgeting. The second one being resilient well-being. What that means is building societies that thrive in the face of uncertainty by fostering social, economic, and environmental resilience at every level. At the individual level, what does that mean? It ensures mental and physical health, happiness, and dignity throughout life, including compassionate end-of-life care as well, something which is very less talked about. At the community level, it strengthens social cohesion, trust networks, and cultural vitality because resilience is rooted in solidarity. At the national level, it prioritizes adaptive capacity, crisis preparedness, and a care economy that values those who sustain life and well-being. The third one, which is honestly a very, very important element as well, which is planetary boundaries and environmental justice, which calls for a profound shift in how we define progress in itself, right? Placing nature at the center as a rights-bearing entity and respecting ecological limits and thresholds. It means valuing and preserving natural assets by embedding circular economy principles and regenerative capacity metrics into national frameworks. Progress must reflect maintenance and renewal, not depletion, ensuring that economic growth never comes at the expense of ecosystems. The fourth one, equity, inclusion, and knowledge justice that demands that progress be rooted in fairness and diversity, ensuring intersectional equity across age, gender, geography, and ability. It calls for future-proof educational system that embrace epistemic inclusion, valuing indigenous knowledge and lived experiences alongside scientific and technological innovation. Digital inclusion and data dignity must be guaranteed so that every person can participate fully and safely in the digital world. And finally, spillover accountability that ensures that progress within one country does not come at the expense of others or future generations. It calls for tracking transboundary environmental, economic, and social impact to make visible the ripple effects of national policies and consumption patterns. And this domain demands global fairness and shared responsibility for externalities, whether carbon emission, resource depletion, or social consequences, so that development is not a zero-sum game. These recommendations, they are not just aspirations, they are a call to action. Youth envision a world where progress is measured by justice, by resilience, and by sustainability, not just economic outcome. We invite all stakeholders to join us in making Beyond GDP a reality that reflects the values of humanity and the hopes of future generations. And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Palak, for the clarity of your thoughts and the inspiration for a call to action. Because as we said before, this exercise cannot just be a technical exercise. It has to be a technical exercise to be credible and to be rigorous, but it also needs to be a call to action, and your words resonated with that. Before we open the floor to the audience, I want to ask either Nora Koshik or the Deputy Secretary General if you have any reaction to Palak's call to action, or if we prefer to hear from the audience.
The only thing I'd like, thank you very much, and we would like to get a copy of your presentation, please. We have one from Deputy Secretary General, but not yours. I think that what you mentioned reemphasizes something that we discussed with the Deputy Secretary General before this session. It is that we have been concentrating on outcome indicators. We probably need to think about effort indicators as well, and so that we can request that both be collected. Many of them, a lot of them, including in outcome and in effort, are already part of the SDG menu, so it's not going to be additional work, but it's just going to have more salience, certain ones. That's what we should do. I think we should include this in our task. I hope you agree. You agree? Okay, perfect.
Thank you very much. Now, we have about 15 minutes for open questions from the audience. So we we request you to be brief, to keep your comments or questions to 2 minutes, and to also give your name and where you're coming from. So,
Yes, indeed, Ricardo. And just wanted to remind also again, this is a dialogue. It's a safe space. I mean, I know it's recorded, so maybe not that safe, but but I just really want to ask you to. I know we're all here with our UN hats, as I am, but we're also all humans after all, and this is a deeply human topic that we're talking about. We talked a lot about the technical side of things and indicators, but in the end of the day, it's really about shaping the societies. And you mentioned that, Mr. Vajic, about how do we create again that legacy in the future. So please also speak as a human when you do your intervention. And yeah, we will have 2 to 3 rounds, keep it short, and I see already some hands up. Maybe I'll start here on the left side. I see someone with very nice colored trousers. Eva, yeah, if you can maybe briefly introduce yourself, I give you my mic.
Thank you very much. Eva Maria Egger from BMZ, the German Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. We are very proud to be here today, supporting Beyond Lab in this very important initiative to bring youth into the conversation. And personally, I'm very excited. I thought I was young, but then I remembered that more than 10 years ago, I started a student group of Rethinking Economics at my university. So it's really great to see these type of student-led movements at the table with the experts in the world for these type of questions. My question to you all on the panel is that, yeah, how are you planning to integrate the interaction between the indicators? The last Global Sustainable Development Report really focused on how some aspects, some indicators are really accelerating or dampening progress on many of the other indicators. And so I'm just wondering, you know, an economist myself, having worked with aggregated indicators, dashboards, is there something you can add in terms of capturing these kind of effects of acceleration, dampening, spillovers into for the next generation, in a way of how the dashboard indicators will interact with each other? Thank you very much.
Thank you also to keeping up the spirit of hope. We hear a lot about, you know, Doha a little bit moving us forward more positively. But let me just say, I'm with the UN Human Rights Office, and I want to say that sustainability and well-being and inclusion are inseparable from human rights. And thank you, Palak, for saying that up front. And grounding, I think, indicators and human rights norms is going to make them more legitimate and I think more specific, and it will contribute to accountability. So I hope we can stay intact on that. Metrics are never neutral, as you've already alluded. And I want to say that what we choose to measure shows what we value and what we want. And I think that's also there. Essential that we learn from past mistakes, and again, you're saying you're open to experience, but we have excluded groups in the past, for example, care workers, and I think we need to make sure that we're not doing that. The very purpose of economic activity, what is it? You, again, open to rethinking. I hope we rethink, not just developing metrics, but why. And then I think, again, poverty and climate vulnerability, developing new indicators is just the first step. The move to action is going to be important, and how we do the policy uptake even more so. But thank you very much. We've enjoyed the interaction with you.
Thank you so much, Deputy High Commissioner. Actually, I mean, just to say, OHCHR is also a key partner in this of the human rights economy and Geneva, so I just wanted to say a special thank. And maybe redirect the questions, if that's okay, before we open up for another round. Maybe you want to react already, if that's okay. Or shall we continue? As you wish. Okay, that's perfectly fine. I'll hand over back then the microphone to the audience. Bueno, okay. I think I've seen a hand there first, but it's gonna be, I'm not gonna be equal here. I'm just gonna say, because it's overwhelming a bit, but I will do my best. Mario. Thank you.
So, hi, I'm Mario Biggeri from the University of Florence and working with Merge and Space. So I think your work has been really fantastic, and I would like to stress on what Palak was saying, I think it's fantastic, the fact that youth people are giving their voice, because I think it's fundamental, it's central. It is the time that we have to listen, not just listen, but give also space for this dialogue. So I would like to thank you. At the same time, I'm an economist, and as economists, we are moving a movement, which is Renaissance in Economics. We will have our third conference in Rome in May. I think this is the way to go, and very happy. So I hope, I'm really enjoying this moment, and I really think that we are on the right track. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a very great honor. I'm Dr. Hassan Rengufwake. I'm the CEO of the World Youth Summit, NPC. And I can proudly say, with this golden opportunity before the Secretary General of the United Nations, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, that we are one of the first youth organizations that has been advocating for the Sustainable Development Goals since 2017, and we have been really helping the young people all around the globe. We are based in South Africa, and we have representatives in many other countries of the world. So, but here I'm standing as a youth leader, but as well as the CEO of a tech company in Cameroon. I wanted to ask, with the rise of artificial intelligence and digital analytics, how can countries leverage data-driven tools to design new well-being indicators that go beyond GDP, especially in the global south where data gaps remain significant? Thank you.
And can I go very quickly afterwards? Great. I'm Lara Fleischer. I work at the OECD Wellbeing Center, leading the Beyond GDP measurement work there. And I was wondering, you put a lot of emphasis, at least from this presentation, on already collected indicators, because you need this global coverage. Are you going to also set an ideal statistical agenda? Would like to know about that. Thanks.
Queen Mother has something to say. Come over here to Queen Mother. Where is my leader? She went back there. Why are you back there? I'm looking for you over here.
Hello everyone, my name is Salam Al-Hatfa. First of all, yes.
You're my leader, so you have to stay with me. It's just such an honor to follow the young people in the world. I'm just coming back from China, and it's the youth of Qatar asked Queen Mother to be with them. And so that means I had to come to be with them. Now it's imperative that we hear the voice of many young people are not in this room. And so the leadership young people, Queen Mother been wrapping her arms around them. I let them know that intergenerational love them and care about them. But they are the ones are running the world, whether we like it or not. As I told them in Paris during the Olympics, run as fast as you can run. To change the conditions that we speak of at the United Nations. Now, she promised me that they're going to do that. And saying that, Queen Mother wanted to say to all of you in this room, empowering each other and passing the leadership on to the young people. Queen Mother said in China to engineering students, 20-some years old, and they're designing for the world the work that they are doing for sustainable and economic development. I said to the young people, Queen Mother is in a rebirth. I am older than the United Nations, which they are 80. I am older than China, Republic of China, which they are 80, born October 1. I'm older than Nigeria, over 250 million people October the 1, which is my birthday, but now it's my rebirth. I say to all of you, allow them to go on with sustainable and economic development and let them stay on this sacred path as Queen Mother constantly witnessing history making through them for the peaceful, harmony, just society they must live in to serve themselves and others. And I say to them, run as fast as you can run to cause that change in the world we all live in. Blessings upon you.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Your Excellencies, for this enriching dialogue. My name is Salam Al-Hetfa, and as a youth from Qatar, part of the Qatar United Nations delegation, I've seen how our national vision links economic growth with social and environmental well-being. My question is, how can the Beyond GDP framework reflect young people's role in shaping these more holistic development goals?
Thank you very much for all those questions and interventions. Very inspiring. Now we'll give back the floor to the podium if you want to react or to what you heard, and if we have time, we'll go back to the floor. Who wants to start? Kaushik.
Because again, we want to keep this as dialogue, so it's a dialogue with the distinguished people here, so do you have an exchange? Thank you.
Yeah, just very brief comments that I really, from your questions and even suggestions, just taking away thoughts. Eva, I wanted to mention what you brought up about aggregation. When we have multiple indices, I would personally, this is still at an interim stage, try to put clusters into aggregated form. Because if you have too many of them, yes, it's all there, but that is what causes a blurriness in what you're aspiring to. But aggregation is a very, very difficult job. I mean, a plain straight aggregation is too flat. If you keep it as a vector, then there's a lot of economics on ranking which comes in, which you have to deal with. But if we can use intelligent methods to create some, that will be worthwhile. Otherwise, generally very useful. Mario, when you said, as an economist, I got a bit worried whenever people preface something with as an economist, but you're saying that we are on the right track is very useful. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your questions and your encouragement. It's very nice to hear this. Let me address your question about trade-offs. I mean, essentially, that's what you asked. There's going to be trade-offs in terms of maybe some things when they progress, others get hurt. It's very hard to capture that. And there's also trade-offs we have to be aware of in terms of a government budget is limited where it goes. And that's why the indicators have to be very sensitive to what is it that we really want to go first and fastest. That's something that we are very mindful, and it has to do with the aggregation issue as well. Second, human rights, definitely. But I think we're going to end up proposing is to have a systemic framework in which human rights are at the cusp, core rights, okay? And that probably we need to have an assessment, monitoring, that I understand the UN has it, but maybe not in a sort of one place. And I think it might be interesting to propose that this happens in one place at the same time that you also monitor other indicators that are not related to human rights. We'll see. The rise in AI, I think the rise in AI has at least two things. One is opportunities because, we're going to be able to collect data that before was very hard to collect using geospatial techniques, big data, etc. I think we're going to make progress also in terms of having nowcasting, which is so important to take action opportunely. Now we have a delay when we get an indicator about what's happening. So this is actually something that we will be able to use. But AI puts us in front of a very, very big challenge, which is what's going to happen to the labor markets. Even if it's not true that human labor is going to be displaced completely, there'll be a transition. And we have to be prepared to deal with that transition, because there's going to have to be different ways in which we can help make sure that people do not fall into poverty because of that transition. And regarding the data, definitely we're going to be proposing an agenda for the future as well. Things that currently are not being collected, but that we think is important to collect in the future to make an effort, so it's going to have both. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to give very quick opportunity also to Palak to speak, because there was a point also on spillovers accountability. You made that as, if that's okay.
Yeah, but like Deputy Secretary General, you're fine? Okay.
If you would like to speak, of course, I leave it to after Palak, if that's okay.
I'll not take too much of your time. I think thank you so much for the encouragement, and I think all the pointers have already been made that I wanted to cover. Essentially, all the recommendations we made, they are open to suggestions, ideas, and it's again, the suggestions have been as inclusive and intersectional as possible, so that they show the realms, ideas of every group possible. And yeah, I'll hand it over to ma'am.
We don't want you to disappear, we want to hear from
I'm
you.
getting all these signals. But no, thank you very much. I think that one of the things that is coming out of this discussion is where we're going to put AI and new technology, because it is going to affect the way we measure. And maybe a little bit more to what Nora had talked about, the efforts that we make. No longer will it take time. I think we'll be able to say in real time more often than we've ever done. So we can react sooner to many of the different issues and challenges that we have in a very diverse world. Not all things are equal. When we talk to the human rights agenda, we're often told these are indivisible rights, but they're progressive, and we often forget the progressive. So how then will our set of metrics really help us to do that? On the new technologies, we're talking a lot about the leapfrogging and what this will bring as a tool to us, but the changes it will make, not just in the labor markets, but in society. And this is what we're doing. If it's GDP plus, the plus is about the human on this earth. And so I'm just, conscious that we went from the horse and cart to the combustion engine. It was a massive change. Things changed in society today that perhaps only the anthropologists will tell you about, but we need more people to come and tell us that the change in society will be more than just the job. It will be the human connection. Already we're seeing that with the use of technology, less empathy. We're seeing people losing themselves. There is a very big mental health issue. How do we deal with those things? And I think that piece has not been really talked through. And maybe this is, when we come to the plus, which this is, that those that will be responsible to the efforts that need to be made, there will be responsibilities in that social contract. And it will be more than just government. It will also be society. And really this was to the point, I was listening to Queen Mother, and she's everywhere all the time. But she signifies for me our traditions, our faith, the things that actually root us. And we often very dismissive of it because we get into this world where that's not useful talk. The real talk is GDP. Okay, there's a plus, and the plus is the other half of us. And again, to the gender agenda, maybe this time bringing women in, truly bringing them in, we'll get the reality of what a measure should be. Because if we're talking about a measure, please let the outcome be in the other 50% of the world. And that's not going to happen without a really thorough discussion about what that means. And it means different things to different people. And the diversity is our richness, not our weakness, and we are not one size fits all. Thank you.
I think a session is successful if we wish it lasted longer. But we've reached 4:20, and I think we have to conclude by now. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all your participation. As Kaushik mentioned, the interim report is online. There's a survey there. We'll make sure that the high-level expert group receives all your comments and suggestions. So please go to the website. Please continue the conversation there. And again, we'll make sure that that is fed to the process and to the work of the high-level expert group. Roger, you want to?
Thank you so much, Ricardo. I think you guys are already leaving, so I don't want to add more time to your time or steal time from your time. But I just want to say thank you so much for being with us today and for having shared your thoughts. Continue doing that. Again, it's about inclusion and co-creating this process with you. I just wanted to thank you again, Eva, and the German government for believing in Beyond GDP and moving this critical issue forward in times of backlash, if you can also be honest about that. But when a new world is born, right, there's always a time for monsters, but we have to also make sure we still continue creating the new world, and I think that's what you're doing. So thank you for that. And also the Swiss Development Agency, same for the trust to the lab. And you will see and hear us again. So see you next time. Thank you so much.